the things you had mentioned is that it seems almost unique to racing that they encourage photography and they let all the fans up close at a racetrack. It's a sort of special feature we've got of being racing fans, that level of access. The access that you have is incredible, but also just the fans get to kind of share in that, being up right close to the racetrack. How do you feel that that level of access enables you to kind of better tell the story?
Well, that's how I and most of my colleagues got our start, is just by going to the races as a fan with a camera. And we are so fortunate that for whatever reason, just the mentality in car racing is that they want the fans to be able to take that home. They want the fans to be able to share that. Um, I can kind of see from the other sports that don't allow that perspective. Like, you can't allow, 15, 20,000 people into Champions League, like, stadium with 500, 600 millimeter lenses. There's just not that much room. And you'd have people like banging into each other with lenses and gear, and it just creates a safety concern. But with racetracks, because they're so big, I guess it's just one of the reasons that they do encourage fans to just bring their cameras, and you can go. There's very few tracks or series that don't allow fan photography, and so it's so much fun to walk around the races and talk to people that have cameras that just want to be there doing what I'm doing, or don't even want to do it professionally. They're just enjoying it as a fan. And some of the races that I've been to, you see equipment that is, newer and more expensive than my own. And
Yeah.
like when I've gone to Asia before, you see cameras that aren't even on the market yet, just being held by fans, and it's super, super cool. It's a lot of fun to see that. So we're very fortunate that in car racing they encourage that versus, golf or football or American football, tennis, basketball, like all these sports. You can't walk into an arena with a camera and a lens that's really more than like a point and shoot or your phone.
Absolutely.
So you can bring your DSLR and a 600 millimeter lens to most of these tracks, and they encourage it.
And I think that's freedom that you spoke about. Sometimes, while that is present in motorsport, it can also come around from the teams. You had spoke about an incident with Red Bull where you'd photograph the rear of the car, and maybe that information wasn't actually something they wanted in the public eye, but it felt very much in the spirit of the sport that you were saying, no, I'm here to take this picture and I'm going to put it out because it's my freedom as that kind of storyteller to tell that full story. And while maybe the teams aren't always a fan of that in terms of their own benefit, that culture more widely in the sport of trying to tell every story and uncover every turn over every stone, should we say. I really enjoy that. And I think that's also something I try and do with my show is get that extensive coverage. And you probably butt heads with some few people along the way, I assume, in your time.
Yeah, I mean, so I actually had an interesting Twitter Spaces that I did recently where one of the Red Bull, he was a former Red Bull like chief engineer on one of the cars. He and I were invited to be on this Twitter Spaces, and we actually had a really entertaining chat because I'm coming at it from the perspective of photographer covering an F1 race, and he's coming at it from, an engineer trying to engineer the car, but also protect the secrets of the car. And, honestly, like my job has very little to do with spy photography, trying to get those aerodynamic pieces of the cars that are secret that other drivers and teams want to know about. I absolutely have been asked to do it, but it's a tiny, 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 tiny fraction of what I'm doing on a weekend. And it was really interesting how he was like, well, we hate it that you guys do that. I'm like, well, yeah, but you're also employing people to do that yourself. So you can't be too mad about it that I'm taking a picture of the rear of your car. And I only did that to make that particular story you're talking about. I only did that to make a point because we'd been removed from a spot that was really nice, just a nice artistic spot. And they removed us because they assumed that we were all there taking pictures of the diffusers of the cars. And I was like, no, I'm just here doing some pretty photos, but I can go somewhere else to take a picture of the diffuser of your car. So,
Right. Absolutely. And I think that
Yeah.
the teams, as much as the teams might resist that in the individual instance, we see, I think, especially with the Formula One season this year, they're perfectly ready to extend that to other teams they're competing against, of, trying to block their access to things or cover up their garage when they're working on the car, things like that.
Yeah.
So it's almost, they're doing it to protect their own interests, but what the fans want to see is the real thing behind that.